I am Ryan Johnson, 42 years old, and I am standing on the edge of change. My life has always been calm, simple, and almost uneventful. But everything changed in just one night. Since marrying Emily, I always thought we had built a strong relationship. She was the woman I had loved throughout my college years, and we had a life that seemed perfect. We had a home, stable jobs, and a relationship that seemed free of complaints. That was until one day when I started noticing strange things. About 6 months ago, I began to feel an invisible distance between us. Emily was always busy with work, and I found myself spending more time with my own company. At first, I thought it was just the stress of work, but as time passed, I began to feel that something wasn't right. She didn't spend as much time with me as before, and when we were together in the evenings, she seemed tired and silent, no longer sharing much like she used to. One late night, I decided to do something I never thought I would have to do. I installed an electronic surveillance system in the house. I had no suspicions about her, but the uneasy feeling inside me kept growing, and I couldn't just do nothing to check. This system not only helped me monitor the security of the house, but could also record phone calls and messages from contacts in the house that I didn't know about. I didn't turn on the recording feature immediately. I just thought that if something unusual happened, at least I could find out. As I began listening to the calls through the system, I didn't expect to find anything important. The first few conversations were about everyday things. But then I realized that the calls every evening started lasting longer, and increasingly, fewer of them were from friends or colleagues. What I didn't realize at first was the time of her calls. Always in the evening after I had left for work, Emily still smiled and talked to me like she always had, but what I heard in those calls told a different story. The conversations gradually became more ambiguous and full of implications, especially the calls from a number I didn't recognize. One day, when I heard her voice on a call lasting over 40 minutes, I started paying attention to the details. The call began like any other ordinary call, but gradually, I heard words full of hidden meaning. Emily was talking to the other person. Lately, I feel like I'm just a shadow in Ryan's life. Everything is the same as usual. He never gets tired of his old habits. And I need something new. Each word she said was like a knife piercing through me. I froze, unable to breathe, a lump rising in my throat. The man on the other end wasn't just anyone. It was Alex, Emily's colleague at the financial firm where she worked. He wasn't just a friend. He seemed to be someone who had taken hold of my wife's heart. As I kept listening to those calls, I discovered that they weren't just harmless chats. In another call, I heard Emily admit, "He doesn't make me feel loved anymore. Ryan isn't interested in me anymore. But you always make me feel special. You make me feel like I'm the only woman in the world." My heart felt suffocated. I knew I couldn't hesitate anymore. I had to face the truth, even though that truth might destroy everything I had built. But I couldn't keep living in deception. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I decided it was time to face Emily. She had just come home when I called her down to the living room. I had already prepared a list of the calls I had recorded, along with some snippets of conversations that made me question her relationship with Alex. As she entered, I could see the change in her eyes. She no longer smiled, no longer had the confident look she always had. She knew I had found out everything. "Emily, we need to talk," I said in a low, cold voice. "I've heard all the calls, all the things you've said to Alex. I can't believe it." She began to tremble. "Ryan, I can explain." "Explain?" I interrupted. "How can you explain when I've heard everything? You said I'm no longer attractive, that I'm too boring, while you find joy in the hands of another man?" Emily couldn't answer. She just stood there, silent, her eyes full of tears. "I don't know what to say." I sighed, feeling the anger rising within me. "It's over, Emily, and I won't wait anymore. You can leave right now, or I will have a lawyer handle everything." The room was silent, with no sound except for the breathing of both of us. Emily stood there, her eyes red from crying, but I didn't feel a shred of sympathy. She had said too many lies, and now I had all the proof I needed. "Ryan, I don't know how to explain. It was just a mistake. I felt so lonely," Emily said softly, her voice choked. I shook my head, unable to stand her weakness anymore. Didn't you feel lonely when we still lived under the same roof? Didn't you feel lonely when I still brought in money and worked hard to provide for this family?" She remained silent, her head lowered. I looked into those eyes, eyes that once made me feel safe, but now all I saw was emptiness. I no longer recognized the woman I had loved and married. "Emily, all I wanted was honesty, and I gave you the chance to tell the truth. But you chose to lie to me. You chose to betray us," I said, my voice colder than ever. A part of me wanted to see her remorse, to feel a hint of regret, but instead of remorse, I only saw fear flash through her eyes, and that made me even angrier. She wasn't sorry for betraying me. She was only scared of the consequences she had to face. I walked closer to her, a surge of anger rising within me. Everything seemed to shatter in that moment. The feeling of being betrayed, deceived, was something that could never be erased. "You can't stay in this house anymore," I said firmly. "I will not allow you to continue existing in my life like this." She looked at me, a bewildered expression on her face, unable to believe what I had just said. "Ryan, I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. Stop pretending, Emily." I cut her off. "Everything I've done for you, all of it, means nothing to you. You just want Alex. You've let everything go for him." She looked up, tears streaming down her face, but I felt no sympathy. Faced with betrayal, I felt that I could no longer let emotions cloud my judgment. I had done so much for what was called this family, and now I was ready to end it. Emily lowered her head, her face flushed, her hands trembling as she placed her purse on the floor. "So I have to leave, then?" she said, trying to steady her voice. "Yes. I don't want to see you here anymore. It ends here," I replied, my voice unwavering. She looked at me one last time, then silently walked out, leaving behind a quiet void in our room full of memories. When the door closed, I stood there for a while, saying nothing, moving nothing, just feeling the sudden emptiness, a chilling silence. I felt like I had lost everything, but the truth was, I had regained something precious: freedom. I spent the next few days preparing for what was to come. This house no longer felt like a place of safety. Everything around me reminded me of Emily, but I knew I couldn't continue living in the past. I had to deal with everything decisively. My surveillance system continued to record calls, and I decided to listen closely to every detail of the conversations Emily had with Alex. The more I listened, the more I felt like I was digging my own grave. Alex and Emily didn't just have an affair, they were also involved in some financial dealings. I realized that what they were doing wasn't just infidelity, it was an intricate financial scam. In the final calls I listened to, Alex spoke to Emily about transferring money from her account to another. They discussed using Emily's funds to hide expenses for vacations and expensive gifts, not to mention the items they had bought for each other with that money. I felt like I was being violated not just emotionally, but financially. Not only had they betrayed me in love, but they were also defrauding me, using my trust to serve their own personal interests. A surge of anger swept over me, and I knew I couldn't let this end like this. I decided to hire a private investigator, someone my company had worked with before. He quickly got to work on the investigation. The information I received from the investigator didn't just confirm my suspicions, it also revealed a plan for revenge that I hadn't even considered. Alex and Emily hadn't just destroyed my marriage, they were also committing financial fraud. I had to use everything I had to protect myself and my assets. My lawyer helped me prepare for a tough legal battle. As I entered this fight, I wasn't just fighting for justice, I was fighting for my own dignity. What they did affected me, but it also threatened everything I had built over the years. I was tired of the betrayal, and I would not let it go without consequences. My large room no longer felt like a place of safety. Every step I took in this house now felt like a burden. Everything inside me had changed since I discovered Emily's betrayal. I had spent a long time thinking about it, but now, I was no longer the man I once was. Everything I had once trusted had been shattered. Yesterday, when I heard Alex and Emily's words on the phone calls, I felt like I was being crushed under their lies. Not just emotionally, they had also deceived me financially, taking money I had worked my whole life to earn. They had exploited my trust, and now I had to face the painful truth that everything I had built had become a tool for their personal gain. I decided not to stop. I couldn't continue living in the shadows, in deceit. The next steps weren't just about revenge. They were about fighting for justice. I scheduled an urgent meeting with my lawyer. We discussed the financial issues, the lost money, and how I could recover what Alex and Emily had taken. I knew this would be a fight without mercy, and I couldn't back down. My lawyer presented a strong legal strategy based on the evidence I had gathered. We would leverage the financial relationship between Emily and Alex, particularly the money transfers from Emily's account to another account that I had no knowledge of. This was not just infidelity, but also serious financial fraud. They would have to pay for it. During this process, I received information from the private investigator I hired. The reports not only confirmed the relationship between Emily and Alex, but also revealed some of their actions throughout the time they had been together. They had used business trips and social events to maintain their relationship without getting caught. But now, everything was exposed. I couldn't just let everything end like this. I had carefully prepared for the next confrontation. A part of me still felt pain, but the other part was filled with anger and determination. I decided that Emily and Alex had to face the consequences of their actions. An official meeting was held with my lawyer and representatives from the bank. During the meeting, I presented clear evidence of the illegal money transfers. I even showed them the recordings of the phone calls I had collected, in which Emily not only admitted to deceiving me but also attempting to defraud the bank. When Alex was brought to light, I saw panic in his eyes. He no longer had the confident look he once did. When he saw me enter the meeting, he started sweating, his face pale. I could see the fear in his eyes. "Ryan, you can't do this. You can't be this cruel," Alex shouted. I looked at him, unwavering. "I can't forgive this betrayal. You not only destroyed my life, but you also harmed a company I've worked so hard to build. You and Emily have been exploiting me for so long, and now I'm not letting you off easily." Alex tried to explain, but his words only made me more furious. Both Emily and he had underestimated me. They thought I would just stand by and endure, but they were wrong. It didn't end there. After the meeting, I received a call from my lawyer, who informed me that the companies Emily and Alex were involved with had begun investigating them for financial fraud. The bank where they worked was also reviewing the illegal money transfers, and it was likely they would face serious legal consequences. A feeling of satisfaction washed over me. Not only had I regained justice for myself, but I had also protected what I had spent years building. Every betrayal now had a fitting consequence. However, when I looked back on everything, I didn't feel happiness. This battle was not something I had wanted, but I had to do it to protect myself. Although I had won, deep down, I understood that things would never be the same again. Even though I had won, my life was no longer what it once was. Emily and Alex had been dealt with legally, and everything I needed to do to recover what I had lost had been completed. However, I knew the wound in my heart would not easily heal. I no longer felt the need for a woman by my side. I no longer awaited forgiveness from Emily. I had accepted that I would have to go through the rest of my life alone. What I could do now was continue living, learning from the mistakes of the past, and moving forward. Trust is the most valuable thing in any relationship. When trust is broken, not only does love fade, but everything you've built becomes meaningless. Moreover, sometimes justice doesn't come from forgiveness, but from strong decisions and the execution of justice.